What you know, Alibis. Welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi. Katie Magbanua just got off the stand. I wanted to recap this as quickly as I could, so let's jump in. She tells the jury she is serving life for the murder of Dan Markel. She had a trial and testified in her own defense. She testified the state had it right about everyone else but got it wrong about her, and she admits that what she said on the stand wasn't true. She also testified in the trial where Sigfredo was convicted and again lied. And the prosecution asked, so why tell the truth now? She said the truth needed to come out and the people responsible needed to be arrested. And she would like to see her kids one day, so she hopes something can be done. But she has not been promised anything for her testimony. She hasn't been threatened, all that jazz. She tells the jury she was originally offered immunity, and in the first trial, she was tried jointly with Sigfredo, her significant other, and the father of her kids. And the reason she did not take the immunity deal is because Sigfredo was facing the death penalty and she couldn't do it. By the time her second trial came around, she had been living a lie, and it was hard to come out with the truth. But she admits she was involved and the state had it right. She was the middleman. Charlie solicited her to get involved. The two were dating at the time, which started in 2013 when Katie worked at a dental practice, and they stopped dating towards the beginning of 2015. She said at times it wasn't clear if she was dating Sigfredo or Charlie. She's been with Sigfredo off and on since she was 18, and in the off time, she would see Charlie, and sometimes the two would overlap during the time of the murder. Charlie first brought up this idea to her on Halloween 2013. They were at a block party, and when they were getting ready to get in their cars, he jumped into hers and asked if she knew anyone who could harm someone. Katie said yes, and she didn't say this to Charlie, but Sigfredo was the first person to pop in her head. They show a photo of her and Charlie that was taken on Charlie's birthday, October 27th, 2013. They took a drive down to the Florida Keys. And this was just days before he asked if she knew somebody that could hurt someone. Katie said she wasn't aware Charlie sent this picture to his sister that night. Then she's asked, why would Charlie think you knew someone? She said, I guess maybe I talked about Sigfredo and the situations we were having and maybe mentioned his criminal history. At that time, she doesn't think Sigfredo knew she was seeing Charlie, but eventually he did become aware. And the prosecutor says they'll bring in a phone call with the next witness where Charlie and Sigfredo had an altercation. Sigfredo saw Charlie and Katie leaving and blocked off the road. He stopped and started screaming. Sigfredo must have Googled the dental practice, and he leaves Harvey a very nasty voicemail by mistake. She says Rivera is Sigfredo's friend, and she's known him for over a decade through Sigfredo. She said she agreed to help Charlie because Charlie knew she had financial problems and she needed the money. Charlie later told Katie that his parents and his sister were going through it and painted a very bad picture of Dan. And she said at the same time she sympathized because she was going through some things with Sigfredo. Charlie said his parents couldn't sleep. One of them was throwing up and it had just become a big problem to them. She met Donna once at the dental office to get some cavities fixed and also have her teeth whitened. She said at that time, Donna knew her and Charlie were dating. After that initial approach on Halloween, there was more discussion about hiring somebody to hurt someone. They would get together on average a couple of days a week if she could find childcare, and sometimes she would stay overnight and there would be talk about hiring someone. He would mention it here and there. And Katie would tell him, yes, I can do it, that she had someone. She says sometimes Charlie would be speaking to Donna during these conversations, and he would look at her weird and then step out of the room to talk to Donna. He would come back and say that this needs to be taken care of. She said the situation with Donna on the phone would happen a number of times. So the prosecutor says more than 5 times. And she said, yes, this was a regular part of how this all worked when it came up. Charlie never specifically told her what he and his mom talked about, but she understood getting the job done would relieve the stress on Charlie and his parents. She goes through when Charlie gave her the envelope at his house and told her not to open it. He wore gloves to handle the envelope and said to pass it on to whoever she knew, and there were no names used. He put the envelope in her diaper bag, so when she went home, she contacted Sigfredo and said, I have a package for you. Come by when you can. Charlie also mentioned he did not print the document at his home, but possibly at one of the offices he worked at. She gave that package to Sigfredo. He took it and left out the door. Katie told Sigfredo she had a person who needed to be beat up, which at the time was her understanding, and he said okay. For that failed attempt in June, she told Charlie she needed money for the job. She said they were going to scope things out and they needed funds to get out of town. So she got money from Charlie to give to Sigfredo, and that amount was less than $500. After the June trip, when nothing happened, Charlie was like, what's going on? Katie said she didn't know. She said Sigfredo would drift in and out of her life, and she was worried that he took the money and just went off the grid, and because of that, she couldn't get any information to Charlie. Charlie was still pressuring her to get it done, and he was more adamant between that first and second trip, asking why hasn't anything happened. She did not tell Sigfredo or Rivera about Dan's travel plans, but she thinks a lot of information would have been on that envelope. For some reason, Sigfredo knew information, Charlie knew information, but the confusion was on her. There were some texts between the June and July trips. Katie is asking Charlie to put her on payroll to show that she's working. And part of the reason she wanted her payment to come through the Adelson Institute was so she would be able to show a proof of employment to be able to get insurance for her son. And in doing that, she had to show she made a certain amount, but not too much. She admits she did no work at the Adelson Institute. She wasn't put on payroll until 2 months after the murder. She asked Charlie before the murder to get put on payroll because she knew she could get the job done. And she admits that the money from the Adelson Institute was compensation for her role in setting up the murder. She met Wendy twice, and the first was at a restaurant and then again on the beach around Father's Day, and they show that photo. She says she and Wendy never discussed the murder or Dan's schedule. As far as discussing anything about the murder, she only talked to Charlie and Sigfredo. After that July trip, once the murder was done, she got a call from Sigfredo that they were looking to get their money. That night, Charlie contacted her and said there was an accident and asked if he could have dinner that night. The accident was code for murder. When she got there, Charlie was frantic. He was pacing back and forth and had a gun in his hand, and that was unlike him. Charlie told her his parents had just left his house, and she said she wasn't planning on staying, but Charlie gave her a Xanax. He took one, and they fell asleep. The next morning, Charlie told her the money was in the trunk of her car. She didn't look to see if it was in there, and she just left. She tried to call Sigfredo, but couldn't get him on the phone. She ended up going to the alleyway of Rivera's residence, and out of nowhere, Sigfredo jumped in her car. She said, I don't know where he came from. She told him the money is in the truck, so he got it and he left. She got her cut after Sigfredo came to her apartment and put her money in the closet. The outside was a plastic bag. Inside that was a paper bag, and in the paper bag was a Ziploc. When she opened the Ziploc, the money was stapled. And a few days later, when she reached in the bag, she found the money was damp and it was getting moldy. So she asked Charlie, why is the money wet? And Charlie said Donna physically washed the money. From the time of the murder to the bump, she admits she got money from Charlie. She got money for her car. And before that, he helped her with Mazda repairs. Katie started getting paychecks in September of 2014, and she got her last one in May of 2016. Charlie would hand them to her, and he would give her multiple paychecks at a time. Those stopped after Sigfredo got arrested because the Adelsons got spooked. She said Donna signed all 44 checks that she received. And when Charlie would hand her the checks, he would tell her, don't deposit it all at once, just space them out. But Katie said she did not always follow his instructions. Charlie reached out to Katie after the bump and they met up. They were in Charlie's car and he turned up the volume and told Katie that Donna got approached. Now, once they were inside the Dolce Vita restaurant, he talked more. And she had no idea that law enforcement was intercepting these conversations. She said she thought maybe Charlie thought she was setting him up, and he was going through a lot of scenarios. He mentioned that Rivera's nickname, Tato, was on a piece of paper. He was looking at that and then talking to her about that paper. She was worried that Charlie knew the nickname Tato. She said Sigfredo's nickname was Tudo. When Charlie tells her this, she thought it could be coming from Rivera. She wasn't giving Charlie all the information she had about this and was going to handle it on her own. And Charlie did ask her to contact that phone number on the paper to figure out what was going on. He said he didn't know if it was the FBI or someone who had information on what had happened. And Charlie would say this is one of two scenarios. Katie has reviewed the transcript from the Dolce Vita restaurant, and she says it is accurate. She obviously knew Rivera, but Sigfredo did not tell her that he took Rivera with him to kill Dan. And she didn't tell Charlie Sigfredo was doing the job. Charlie never told her this murder is going to benefit my mother or this murder is going to benefit my sister. But the prosecution asks, did you know that? And Katie says yes. She also confirms Charlie did tell her his mother was at the house right before she arrived the night of the murder and that Donna washed the money. She admits on the wiretaps they spoke in code. For example, property and tenants were code for looking to who was behind the bump. Katie says Charlie would go on these little rants and she would go along with him, but she knew they were speaking in code in case the phones were tapped. The last thing the prosecutor says, innocent people don't speak in code, do they? She says no further questions. So on cross, when you started your testimony, you were asked about previously lying under oath, and from the first trial with Sigfredo to your trial, you gave proffers. Katie said she didn't give the proffer until after her trial, but before Charlie's. She met with prosecutors at the state attorney's office, and the defense asked if each time they met she gave more information, and she said yes. You testified that you got to Charlie's house and his parents had just left. He was nervous, and you both took Xanax and you went to bed. Yes. You're telling the jury you met Charlie and started dating, not exclusive, and at some point he says he wants someone to be harmed and asked you if you knew somebody who could do it. So you contact the father of your kids and you're in a rocky relationship, but you engage him to impose harm on Dan. She's asked you know who Rivera is, but you didn't know he was going to be involved, and Katie said no. And she also didn't know Sigfredo would be the one to actually do it. She said she did not tell Sigfredo the amount of money he would get. She agreed because she needed money, but she said she didn't know how much she would be paid. On the July trip, they ultimately follow and track Dan down, and Sigfredo gets out of the car and shoots and kills him in the garage. So they come back to South Florida. She recounts, Katie goes to Charlie's, they take the Xanax and go to sleep. But the next morning, you still didn't know how much money you were getting? Katie said she thought maybe it was on the paper, and the defense tells her not to speculate, but you arranged a homicide and you did not know the pay, and Katie says that's correct. You get up to leave, you go to Sigfredo, and he hops in your car and you say, I got the money. He goes into your trunk and gets the bag of money. Now, the defense at this point gets really confused about Charlie putting the paper in the diaper bag versus the money that was in Katie's trunk. And they're trying to sort of pin her, thinking that maybe she's lying or she's been caught in something when really the defense was confused. A day or two later, Sigfredo gives you your share. And you still didn't know Rivera was involved? No. You said he puts the money into your closet and you go into your closet to get it. Katie wasn't sure if she went in her closet that day, but a couple of days later is when she felt the damp money. She said she did not touch the money when Charlie gave it to her, and then after that, Sigfredo got it. The defense asks, at some point you open the bag and you find stacks of stapled money. How much did you get for arranging Dan to be killed at Charlie's request? Katie says she never counted the money, and the defense fights back, but Katie is insistent she never counted the money. She said she spent some, she deposited some, and she also admits that Charlie gave her checks from the Adelson Institute. The defense brings up you met Donna once, and she greeted you at the dental practice? Yes. And after that date, Charlie gave you other benefits, and you weren't even together anymore. Katie says they were still friendly. But besides the one time you had that dental appointment and met Donna, after that, you never talked to her again, and Katie doesn't think so. The defense says no calls, no texts, nothing. But you're talking to Charlie and Sigfredo, and Donna isn't involved, is she? And Katie says no. Prosecutor Kappelman right here giving a masterclass with one question to close it all up. Donna didn't have any conversations with you, but Donna had conversations with Charlie. Charlie had conversations with you. Charlie was the go-between for you and Donna, like you were with Charlie and Sigfredo. Is that correct? Yes. No further questions. And by the way, she was not released from her subpoena, so she potentially could be recalled. All right, we will see you later. Well, I will wrap up the financial testimony that was given today about the money and all the accounts. And currently, Sergeant Corbett is on the stand, and it looks like he is doing some cell phone data for the jury. So we will see what that's all about. But for now, that's it. Have a good one.